How much do you reckon you've spent on your Steam account? Even if it's a rough estimate, try and place a figure. It'll be a useful one to have in the back of your mind as we go through today's episode, because I imagine if you've purchased multiple titles over multiple years, that number won't be a small one. And yet, despite this monetary value, and actually on top of that, despite any sentimental value your Steam library may hold, when you die, as per the agreement you currently have with Valve Corporation, that account for all intents and purposes is gone too. As of right now, you can't simply leave your account to a close friend or a loved one. And that's because if you take a look at the Steam subscriber agreement, section C, you'll see that it includes this paragraph right here, which reads, your account, including any information pertaining to it, for example, contact information, billing information, account history and subscriptions, etc., is strictly personal. You may therefore not sell or charge others for the right to use your account, or otherwise transfer your account, nor may you sell, charge others for the right to use, or transfer any subscriptions, other than if and as expressly permitted by this agreement, including any subscription terms or rules of use, or as otherwise specifically permitted by Valve. In the simplest terms, this means that without that express permission from Valve, you can't just give your account to someone else. Even if you were to write it into your will that upon your death you wanted your Steam library to go to another person, without that permission, legally, it doesn't hold up. Earlier this week, I spoke to a lawyer who specializes in the video game industry to confirm that this is in fact the case.
Steam's position is you can't pass it on, which is the default position. Is the default position for pretty much everyone who licenses software. Then they also do say that they will consider things on a case-by-case basis. So if somebody dies, then they will consider, proof that they're dead first of all, when you don't want someone stealing the account, and whether there'd be a legitimate interest in saying you could transfer it. I know Facebook allows, for instance, people to log in and set up an in memoriam account and to take over the running of that under different licensing rules. But for Steam, I'm not aware of anyone who's just carried it on.
As Alex mentioned, this arrangement isn't a unique one to Valve and Steam. In fact, you'll find very similar wording in the terms and conditions you've probably also accepted for PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, or even outside of gaming with iTunes and the Amazon Kindle store. The issue with these digital libraries of ours is that as the end users, when we're purchasing a game or a piece of software digitally, what we're actually purchasing is the license to use that content. According to the agreements that we have with companies like Valve, these licenses can be revoked if we break our side of the bargain, which includes transferring the ownership of our accounts, even upon death.
Until legally they're forced to do it, like somebody brings in some sort of digital copyright laws that say your licensed material and your IP that you've purchased during your life is actually akin to ownership, and therefore you should be allowed to transfer it. No one's going to do that.
But hang on, let's give Valve some credit here. Didn't they say that potentially we could transfer a Steam account from one person to another if we received their permission? Well, alright then, let's give that a go. So if I were to die tomorrow, I think I'd quite like my Steam account to be passed on to my good friend and co-worker Christian Dunlin. I know he hasn't played the Total War games a whole lot, and you know what? I think he might enjoy my collection. Okay, I'm going to write a will that says upon my demise I'd like for this to happen, and I just need Valve to give it the green light, I guess, and we're away. And Valve love greenlighting things, or at least they used to. So I'll just head over to the official Steam support page, and yes, it'll probably come under account, and oh, well, this is odd. There doesn't seem to be a section for users planning to write their last will and testament, which is surprising. How are you supposed to do it then? I guess I'll just ask here instead? Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work. Which is exactly the problem, isn't it? Because it's all well and good for the terms and conditions to suggest that there may be an exception to this rule if you ask for permission, but without an infrastructure to back that up, well then it may as well not even suggest that. I did actually send that request, by the way, and received the following reply a couple of days later. Hello Chris, Steam accounts and licenses are not transferable. Steam support can't provide you with any permission that would change this. We also can't provide assistance regarding your will or what steps should be taken in the event of your death. Thanks for using Steam for... Cheers for... Sorry Donlan, I guess. Now I suspect there might be someone at Valve that I could speak to that might be able to actually grant me the permission that I'd need here, but how on earth do you go about getting in touch with whoever that is? Realistically, you just can't. As a result, this agreement that we have with digital marketplaces is already feeling so antiquated. As today's Steam users continue to grow older, it will inevitably need to be addressed at some point. The problem isn't going to just disappear.
They're going to need to catch up, and I think they're also going to need to catch up on a more practical basis, because everyone's just going to pass in their wills their passwords. and you're going to be left with a situation where their terms don't reflect the reality of what's going on. And as soon as you end up in that situation, you sort of begin to look slightly redundant.
Yep.
If everyone is flouting the rules of your terms, then your rules are powerless, and if you're not going to do anything about it, then arguably, they shouldn't even be applicable.
So things need to change, that's very apparent. But although it may seem like an easy PR win for a company like Valve to come out and say, hey guys, don't worry about it, you can transfer ownership of your account to someone else upon your death, we fixed it, it's fine, it's actually not that straightforward. For Valve to be able to do that, they'd need to renegotiate the terms they currently have with the various publishers they're selling products on behalf of. No, it turns out what we need, my friends, is a hero. What we need is Bruce Willis. In late 2012, a really weird story started doing the rounds, claiming that the actor Bruce Willis was worried about what would happen to his substantial iTunes library upon his death. And more than this, he was even preparing legal action against Apple to allow him to legally leave his account to his daughters once he died. Hard. Now, it turned out this story was entirely bogus, which is a crying shame, frankly, but it raised a very valid point, and that is, for these companies to consider changing their terms and conditions, more than likely, they're going to need to be threatened with a high-profile legal battle.
I would expect that there will be a legal change, either under case law, where somebody will challenge it and say, actually, this is an asset and I should be entitled to do it, or typically what happens with most changes in sort of the digital legal world, a lot of it comes from the States, because it's at the forefront of it.
Right.
And so if, there was if Bruce Willis had successfully challenged it, overturned it, and got a decision in the Californian courts, then it's likely that would start being enforced elsewhere.
Bruce, if you're out there and if you're listening, we need you back, pal. We do. With a vengeance.
Who are you, then?
Just the fly in the ointment, Hans. The monkey in the wrench. The pain in the ass.
So yes, that's where we're at. Of course, in reality, you can give your login details to someone else, and if you do pass away, they can probably use your account without Valve ever noticing that that's happening. And even if they did, would they care? I doubt it. But in the eyes of the law, that's not supposed to happen, which is ridiculous, because if you spent hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars or pounds or whatever building up this library of games, surely you have a right to say what happens to that library once you're gone. We have asked Valve if they'd like to comment on their current subscriber agreement, and well, we didn't go through Thor this time around, we went for a slightly different channel, and we'll let you know if we hear back on that front. But as I said for Thor, this is all feeling very outdated. It's 2017, so many of us are buying games digitally. We need to figure out what that actually means in the long term. And yes, thank you very much for watching this week's episode of Here's the Thing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did figure out how much your Steam account is worth and you feel okay sharing that information, let us know in the comments, because I think it'll be good to actually see the kinds of numbers we're talking about here. It's not a small chunk of change. We do this show every 2 weeks, and we'll put the last 2 episodes here, including the Fallout 3 that we never got to play, and how Phyrexis saved XCOM from complete disaster. I like both of them, I would say that, yeah. And finally, a big thank you to Annie from our design team for working on a few pieces of animation for this week's episode. We've got animation in Here's the Thing. I think it looks really cool. So cheers for that. And yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks with the next episode. Goodbye.